Do you think you know Snow White? Jealous stepmother, magic mirror, 7 dwarfs, poisoned apple. But the fairy tale you've been told is a lie cleaned up over hundreds of years. Original 1812 Grimm. Queen demands lungs and liver cut out. Eats them with salt. No kiss. Coffin drop. This was never entertainment. It was a warning about real crimes. And today we're digging into what they didn't want you to know. Let's talk about what you grew up with versus what actually got written down 200 years ago. On one hand, you've got Disney's 1937 version, True Love's Kiss, Singing Birds, a happy ending where everyone lives happily ever after. But then you've got the Brothers Grimm, 1812. And let me tell you, this is not the same story. In the original manuscript, the queen doesn't just want Snow White dead, she wants physical proof. So she orders the huntsman to bring back the girl's lungs and liver. And here's the direct quote from the text. The cook had to boil them in salt, and the wicked woman ate them up. Think about that for a second. Lungs contain the breath of life. The liver was believed to house the soul's vitality. This isn't just murder. This is consumption of someone's very essence. But here's the part that makes this story even more disturbing. On the yellowed page in Jacob Grimm's precise handwriting, the original word appears. Die mutter, the mother, not stepmother, the biological mother. And get this, in the 1812 version, Snow White is 7 years old when her mother tries to kill her. A 7-year-old child. Later editions quietly changed mother to stepmother. They kept the cannibalism, they kept the murder attempts, but the idea of a biological mother trying to consume her own child, that was apparently too much for people to handle. So from the very beginning, this story has always been about something we're terrified to talk about, the danger that exists inside your own home from the people who are supposed to protect you. Now, Disney will show you one murder attempt and call it a day. But Grimm? Grimm documents 3 separate attempts. And when you look at the pattern, you realize this isn't a moment of rage. This is calculated, repeated violence. Let's walk through what actually happens. First attempt, the strangling lace. The queen disguises herself as a harmless peddler, comes to the cottage, and offers to lace up Snow White's bodice properly. She pulls it so tight that Snow White collapses and stops breathing. The dwarfs come home, find her, cut the laces, and she gasps back to life. They warn her, don't let anyone in, don't trust strangers. Second attempt, the poisoned comb. The queen comes back, this time with a beautiful comb. Snow White lets her in again. The queen pushes the comb into her hair, and the poison immediately drops Snow White to the floor. The dwarfs rush in, pull out the comb, and barely save her again. At this point, they're begging her, please, stop opening the door. But she does it. One more time. Third attempt, the apple. Half red, half white. Beautiful on the outside, poison on the inside. Snow White takes one bite, and this time the dwarfs can't bring her back. So here's where the story gets really uncomfortable. The dwarfs can't bear to bury her. They put her body in a glass coffin, transparent, so they can still see her, and they visit her for 7 years. When a prince finally stumbles upon this scene, he doesn't find a sleeping princess waiting to be awakened. He finds a dead girl's body on display, and he falls in love with her anyway. He doesn't try to wake her up. He begs the dwarfs to let him take the coffin back to his castle. He just wants to keep her there. Think about what that means for a second. Now here's the part Disney completely erased from history. In the original Grimm version, there is no magic kiss. None. The prince's servants are carrying this glass coffin through the forest, and one of them trips. The coffin jolts. That sudden movement knocks the piece of poisoned apple out of Snow White's throat. She wakes up because of a workplace accident. Not true love, not destiny, not a magical kiss. Just gravity and bad luck. So the grand romance we've all been sold for generations? It started with a guy obsessed with a corpse and ended because someone tripped while carrying a coffin. Okay, so if you think the Grimm version is as dark as it gets, let me introduce you to the Italian predecessor that inspired it all. Writer named Giambattista Basile. Story called Sun, Moon, and Talia. This is basically proto Snow White, and it is so much worse. So there's this prophecy that warns Talia's father she's going to be harmed by a splinter of flax. He tries everything to protect her, but one day she gets pricked anyway and falls into this death-like coma. Her father can't wake her. He can't bring himself to bury her. So he puts her in this villa, locks it up, and just leaves her there, on display, just like Snow White in the glass coffin. Years go by. A king out hunting finds this abandoned villa, breaks in and discovers Talia lying there, perfectly preserved, beautiful, unconscious. And he doesn't try to wake her. He assaults her while she's in a coma. 9 months later, still unconscious, she gives birth to twins. One of the babies, while trying to nurse, accidentally sucks the splinter of flax out of her finger. And that's when she finally wakes up. She wakes up as a mother with absolutely no memory of what happened to her. The king eventually comes back, tells her what he did, and somehow in Basile's twisted world, they fall in love. But wait, it gets worse. The king's actual wife finds out about Talia and these children, and she orders servants to capture the twins, kill them, cook them, and serve them to her husband as dinner. Sound familiar? Same exact pattern we see in Snow White, a jealous queen, threatened by someone younger, turning to cannibalism as revenge. What we're looking at here isn't just one disturbing fairy tale. It's evidence of an entire tradition of stories where women are treated as objects, violence is normalized, and the people in power are the most dangerous ones in the room. So let's talk about the one object in this story that everyone remembers, the magic mirror. But here's the thing, the mirror isn't actually the villain. It's the most honest character in the entire story. Think about it. The mirror never lies. It doesn't flatter. It just tells the queen exactly what she asked to hear. The truth. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror answers honestly. At first it's her. Then one day, it's not. It's Snow White. The queen isn't angry at the mirror. She's angry at reality. This is textbook narcissism. Her entire sense of self-worth is wrapped up in being the fairest. The moment that's threatened, her whole identity shatters. And honestly, it's not that different from today. Think about someone whose entire self-esteem depends on likes, comments, followers, on filters and photo angles and going viral. The mirror is basically a 16th century version of social media, except it refuses to lie to make you feel better. And here's the really insidious pattern you see play out. Narcissists will demand honesty from you and then punish you when you give it. The mirror tells the queen over and over, Snow White is fairer than you. And every single time it's like a wound that won't heal. In psychology, they call this narcissistic injury, when reality contradicts the perfect image someone has of themselves. But instead of accepting it, instead of growing, instead of finding value in something other than appearance, the queen decides the problem isn't her. It's Snow White. Snow White has to disappear. Now let's talk about why the whole mother versus stepmother thing actually matters. Here's an uncomfortable statistic. children are far more likely to be abused or harmed by their biological parents than by step-parents. But we don't want to believe that. It's easier to imagine evil coming from an outsider, a stranger, someone who isn't really family. So the Grimms changed the story. They swapped mother for stepmother, and in doing that, they made it easier for us to ignore the real pattern. That danger often lives inside the home, that the person who's supposed to love you most can sometimes be the one who hurts you. Changing that one word didn't make the story safer. It just made it easier for us to sleep at night. All right, let's break down the 4 key symbols in this tale that completely change what it's actually about. First, the mirror. This isn't just a magical object. It's a surveillance tool. The queen doesn't talk to other people. She doesn't have friends, confidants, advisors. She talks to a mirror, because the mirror can't challenge her. It can't have opinions. It can only reflect. But the irony is, the mirror is also the thing that destroys her. It's her externalized ego, the voice that confirms her worst fear, that she's not enough anymore, that she's been replaced. Second, the apple. This is the perfect symbol for how abuse actually works. The apple is half red, half white. It's beautiful on the outside, but inside, pure poison. It's a weapon disguised as a gift. This is how grooming works, how manipulation works. An abuser offers you something you want, something that looks harmless, even kind. And by the time you realize what it actually is, you've already taken the bite. Third, the dwarfs. Everyone thinks the dwarfs are just cute comic relief, but look at where they actually live. They live underground, in the mines. They're literally beneath society, workers that nobody sees, nobody thinks about. In German folklore, they're actually called Kleinenberg Leute, small mountain people. And historically, many of them would have been children, child minors. So when Snow White escapes her abusive home and finds the dwarfs, she doesn't find freedom. She finds a different kind of trap. She becomes their housekeeper. She cooks, cleans, does all the domestic labor. And in exchange, she gets to stay. The safest place a 7-year-old girl can find still requires her to work for her survival. Fourth, the glass coffin. This one's the most disturbing when you really think about it. Snow White's body is preserved, put on display, visited like an exhibit. She can't speak, can't consent, can't leave. She is, in every sense, the perfect girl, beautiful, silent, frozen in time, never aging, never changing, never challenging anyone. When you look at all 4 of these symbols together, they're telling you what this story was always really about. It's not about love, it's about control. So now we jump forward to 1937. Walt Disney is about to release the first ever feature-length animated film. He's betting his entire studio on this one project, and the story he chose, a jealous queen and a dead girl in a glass coffin. But there's an obvious problem. You cannot sell organ-eating mothers and necrophilia as family entertainment. So Disney makes some changes. The cannibalism? Gone. The multiple murder attempts? Cut down to just one. The apple, the biological mother, changed to a stepmother. Snow White as a 7-year-old. Now she looks like a teenager. Death, rebranded as Sleeping Death. And that awkward accidental revival from the coffin drop, replaced with a romantic kiss. Basically, Disney takes this incredibly dark, violent, psychologically disturbing story and paints over it with singing birds and cheerful music. But here's what's wild. Even with all those changes, Snow White is still legitimately terrifying. The queen's transformation into the old hag is pure body horror. The scene where Snow White runs through the forest and all the trees turn into grabbing hands and monsters? That's nightmare fuel. And the ending, where the queen falls off a cliff and vultures immediately start circling her body, that's straight out of the darkest German folklore. Disney didn't erase the horror. He just put a colorful frame around it. And honestly, that's what makes Snow White so important. It became the blueprint for how we handle uncomfortable stories. We sand down the edges just enough to make them marketable, but never enough to actually confront what they're about. We don't talk about the abuse. We talk about the romance. We don't talk about the danger inside the home. We talk about the evil stepmother. We don't talk about objectification. We talk about true love's kiss. So let's bring this all the way back to today. Strip away the animation, the castles, the talking animals. At its core, Snow White has always been about three things: violence inside the family, society's obsession with youth and beauty, and what happens when a woman's value is determined entirely by how she looks. The queen had a magic mirror on the wall. We have front-facing cameras in our pockets. She asked, "Who is the fairest of them all?" We ask, "Do I look good enough to post this? Will people like it? Am I still relevant?" The tools changed. The anxiety didn't. We still live in a world where women are told their value has an expiration date, where youth is treated like currency, where being seen matters more than being heard. The glass coffin isn't some medieval artifact. It's every screen we perform on, every filter we hide behind, every like and comment we count as proof that we still matter. And just like Snow White, we're told that if we just stay beautiful enough, stay quiet enough, stay frozen in time, someone will come along and save us. But that's not how the original story ends. In the original, Snow White wakes up by accident. The prince didn't save her. Gravity did. She saves herself by literally choking out the poison and coming back to life. So the next time you see Snow White smiling in that glass coffin, remember something. She was never waiting for a prince. She was trapped in someone else's idea of what perfection should look like. And the mirror? The mirror was never the villain. It just told the truth. And the truth is what we're most afraid to hear. The story isn't over, not even close. And if you want to go deeper into the tales you thought you knew, the ones that have been cleaned up, rewritten, and sold back to us as something safe, then stick around, because we're just getting started.